everyone. Welcome to Away Games, the Chicago Cubs podcast. You are not locked out from listening to this. You are allowed. We are allowing you to participate.
We're gonna change both of our names slightly, like Ken Griffey Jr. baseball.
Yeah, so we can get around the contracts, the licensing agreement.
Yeah. Just don't go by Kevin McCarthy. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy is not well liked.
No, I get a lot of tweets that are like really pissed at the bag of trash Republican congressperson Kevin McCarthy, and it'll be like, fuck you, man. And I'm like, look, I agree with you, but this is not, I'm not your guy. I'm not your Huckleberry. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, actually, and this is Adam Mamawala.
Hello, everyone. Boy, am I glad we waited to record this podcast because we are doing this Thursday morning. We were going to do it yesterday, and there seemed to be a lot going on, so we waited. And I feel like you and I would have recorded a very angry podcast. We would have left by saying, maybe we'll see you in 2 weeks or never again. We're very upset.
Yeah, no, I was genuinely talking about quitting the podcast. I am like, yeah, because... And I'm not fully unangry, but signing Marcus Stroman, that's news. If we're breaking it to you, I really want to know. I'm really impressed by the needle you thread as a Cubs fan. If we are the ones breaking this news to you, follow us, by the way, at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram and all the things. But yeah, the Cubs made a real ass signing at the literal like last minute, basically, that you could before the owners locked out the players, and got Marcus Stroman. I was at a concert, so I was not tracking this in as real time as I know you were manning the Away Games Twitter handle at the time, and refreshing. How was that process?
It was fun to be refreshing out of excitement and not dread.
Yeah, I feel like I was doing a lot of refreshing over the last couple of days, like just punishing myself. Like, I know nothing's happening. Right. I hate this. Not even a rumor on anyone, kind of.
Yeah, or you're doing that thing where you're trying to specifically, because I kept typing on Twitter like Marcus Stroman Cubs or Carlos Correa Cubs, which seems less likely, but it's very funny when even the internet won't indulge your fantasies. Like you type in, Max Scherzer Cubs, and it's just an article from 8 years ago about how Max Scherzer beat the Cubs. And you're like, give me something. Give me at least a fake rumor.
Right. Yeah, not even being participants in what was going on. It seemed, right. And I mean, there were other signings too, but even, I mean, as we were seeing, I feel like this whole year since the trade deadline, you and I have been like, okay, there is a way to do this in a way that's sensible, good baseball management. So we'll wait to get fully angry until the offseason and until we know they have not done all these things.
Right.
And it seemed like it was going that way as soon as I was like really telling myself to be patient. And then Kevin Gausman signed for a reasonable deal. Basically, it was like 5 years, 110, I think. And I was like, okay, little peeved.
Right. Less per year than Stroman.
Mm-hmm. And Stroman signed for 3 years, $71 million, which I couldn't believe he signed. That he agreed to a deal that short. The AAV is higher, but yeah.
I would have projected him at like 4 and 100.
Yeah, I thought 4 or 5 year deal. I thought he was getting, but it makes sense for him. He also has an opt out after 2, so basically he's on the Justin Verlander deal for 2 years, and then he could opt out after 2 if he wants. But that, I mean, I feel like there's so much to talk about here that it's hard to even know where to start and how to get in. But basically getting a pitcher of Marcus Stroman's caliber for 2 or 3 years does line up perfectly, because what the Cubs have to do with the farm system they have, which when I see fans excuse the lack of spending because of all the prospects the Cubs have, it drives me bonkers, because there's no outside ranking source that ranks the Cubs farm system in total anywhere even above halfway, like the halfway mark in the league. So we have to know that, but also the prospects are so far away that we have to treat the next 3 years as its like own completely different thing. Mm-hmm. And that is the way where I think this Stroman signing lines up perfectly. It's like Marcus Stroman is for this like bridge time. We have to build a different competitor here before we really get infusions from the farm system.
Right. And one of the things that's most encouraging about it is that this signing indicates a larger plan that didn't feel like it was in place. Meaning that,
Totally.
and I saw a lot of Cubs Twitter pointing this out, and I completely agree with it. Right to this point, the signings the Cubs had made were very like Cubs of the last 3 year signings, which is like, hey, we're gonna take a flyer on someone and let's see if this guy pans out. And so they signed Clint Frazier and they signed Wade Miley, which I think you and I both agreed was a good move.
Got him on waivers,
deal. And then they're announcing. Who did they sign? Someone Locke something? I don't know. John Locke? It's not Locke, John Locke.
Yeah, John Locke. A really philosophical decision. Yeah.
Certainly had me thinking.
Locke St. John, who sounds like two high schools were forced to merge because of budgetary shortfalls. Like Locke St. John. I go to Locke St. John.
Either that or a wildly overpriced perfume.
Yeah. Yes.
Like an Yves Saint Laurent sort of thing.
Absolutely. So Locke St. John, a left-handed reliever, right. Great. But yeah, like a left-handed, I think 28-year-old guy who, had a good year, mostly at AAA, I think, last year. But and then, as you said, Clint Frazier, who was a former top 5 pick and was really good in the shortened 2020 season, right-handed bat with some power, plays all across he can play every outfield position, even though his defensive metrics aren't great. But that's a perfectly solid, high ceiling sort of flyer. Right. I mean, that's in terms of guys like, you can kind of think of it as like a Patrick Wisdom or a Schwindel, like a sort of later career breakout, except the pedigree on Frazier is even higher than that. So that's good, but that doesn't make your team a contender. And then the biggest signing and the biggest position player signing since Jason Hayward was absolutely unbelievable, inexcusable, malpractice organizationally. But Yan Gomes, who in a vacuum signing a backup catcher, Yan Gomes, 2 years, $13 million, so 6.5 per year. That's a fine signing on its own.
It was one of the biggest issues the Cubs had last year was the revolving door of backup catchers. But to that end, when the Cubs signed Yan Gomes and all of a sudden you start hearing these rumors about like, oh, well, maybe they're going to ship Wilson off now. And then Wilson, of course, is, as he does sometimes, is tweeting cryptic things. And
yes, he tweeted a bunch of airplane emojis taking off and landing somewhere else, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and he was liking tweets about like being trade bait. And most painfully, someone was like, Cardinals need a starter once Yachty's gone. How about Wilson? And he liked that. And I get it. But yes, go ahead.
But the point being that I do not see a world where the Cubs now sign Marcus Stroman and then trade Contreras. It doesn't make sense. I also don't think that they would stop after just signing Stroman. I don't think they're necessarily going to go get Correa, but like it would be silly to kind of just like go half in because it's almost then more infuriating for the fan base.
Yes. If you stopped now, and it really sucks that the lockout is happening now, because this has been even for as angry as we were for much of the offseason leading up to now, really just this week as signings were happening, this has been the best baseball offseason in years. Like people are actually signing. It feels like one of the other less broken sports in an offseason where there's like a really fun flurry of news and people signing. So it's really frustrating that now the game is going on pause because
but those things are related, obviously.
Yeah, totally. And then you have goons like Jesse Rogers who were out there tweeting like, oh, I'm on the owner's side now. Actually, did you see all the money that just got paid to players? It's like, yeah, once in how many off seasons? And also, Jesse, maybe do a little reporting on how much money the owners have, you dipshit. Like it is such an insane perspective that is both from a bad place but also just unbelievably dumb and naive. Like if we're to believe that Jesse Rogers isn't and Buster Olney and people like that are not just carrying water for ownership, we have to believe they're blindingly stupid, which I'm open to. But
and even I don't know, did you read the beautifully penned letter from Rob Manfred that appears when you go on MLB.com?
I did. I read it pretty drunk after a Hold Steady concert last night, and I was just like fuming about it.
My favorite reply to that was someone sharing that famous clip of The Rock where it's like, MLB fans letter back to Rob Manfred. Shut up, bitch.
Yes. It's just like no one, I mean, I don't know. And I guess I've seen some people on Twitter who are weirdly, bizarrely pro ownership. I mean,
Right.
this should not be surprising that it tracks with a certain percentage of America's vibe. But it's like, I don't know who Rob Manfred thinks he's convincing with that letter. I mean, I guess you got to write something, but
Right.
it's
But
just,
he mentioned specifically, like, look how much money we've all spent. Like, we've
oh my
spent
God.
more money this offseason than we'll have ever spent before. We're on pace, blah, blah. But it
Which is
also,
how it's supposed to work every
it's
year.
exactly how it's supposed to work. And it also has that vibe of, like, when someone has messed up and they're trying to get on your good side and they start, like, being artificially nice to you or, like, buying you things and you're like, what did you do?
Yes, totally. It's like, what is about to happen? Are you locking me out of my house right now?
I will never forget being in Disney World with my parents when they bought me and my sister Mickey Mouse ice creams, which we never got. We were a bring your food from home family. And my sister and I were like, something's up. And as we took our first bite into that Mickey Mouse ice cream, we were told we were moving from Illinois to New Jersey.
Oh my God. That is a
In Disney World.
That's hilarious. And what a perfect comparison to just be like, okay, I appreciate this 3-year, $71 million deal, but what's happening?
Right.
Are my baseball teams getting divorced? Yeah, so so the lockout sucks, and it sucks to not from a fun fan perspective. It sucks to not see, like, okay, so the Cubs just made their first genuine, legitimate major league move of getting Marcus Stroman. That is leaning towards maybe we are actually going to try to compete in this complete trash division of the NL Central that should be embarrassing to not win next year. So it sucks to not be able to see what the next move is now, because also, like, I love we're both super psyched about the Stroman deal. That was, I think, the starting pitcher both of us had at the top of our wish list this offseason. But there are people, I have seen some goofy tweets that are just like, Jed's league, the plan's coming together. And it's like, hold on. This is below the bare minimum that we should expect from a team of the Cubs size, and with all the space under the cap to spend, with the artificial cap that's not even that real. But let's say even with that, okay, so the Cubs still should be spending another $60 to $70 million minimum this offseason. So cool, I'm into it. I love the Stroman signing, but let's not congratulate Jed on a job not even done to an average level yet.
Imagine
like
if the Cubs immediately traded Stroman for 8 13-year-old prospects. just scouring the Little League World Series.
Yeah, we get like basically the JV team. We agree to deals with the entire JV team from that, like, Harvard Westlake High School, wherever like Giolito and Max Fried and all those dudes went. Yeah, so it's an exciting first step for sure, and it's like I think it feels like we've woken up to, okay, maybe the Cubs are going to be competent next year.
Right. This is kind of what we've talked about a lot of the, I don't know, even late season when it was clear the Cubs weren't going to do anything. Like, what would make you feel okay with the Cubs still having Schwindel and Wisdom in the starting lineup? And I think what we said a lot of the time was, like, get us a top-end starting pitcher, which they've now done. We mentioned Stroman a lot of times. And then at the very least, you need more depth, and you need, like, another really good bat, whether that's Castellanos, whether that's Correa, whether that's someone big. The Cubs absolutely need that if they're going to win this division. So at where we stand right now, with the smaller moves the Cubs have made with Stroman, what else do you need to see to not be actively angry at Jed Hoyer and the Ricketts?
I mean, the other thing that I thought was an absolute necessity was, with all the money in the world and no genuine major league shortstop, because I like Nico Horner. I don't think you can be starting him every day at shortstop, especially with a pitching staff that is so contact oriented still. And that's the thing. Marcus Stroman is a big ground ball pitcher. This is why I think the angriest I've been with the Cubs in my adult fandom was the moment Javi Baez signed on a reasonable deal for Detroit, because I thought I wanted him back sentimentally, of course, but it wasn't that much money, and locking in a plus defensive shortstop with a good above league average bat, even though he gets to it in a weird way. I think having a plus defensive shortstop is so crucial with this pitching staff. So, and it's the best free agent shortstop class in the history of baseball. So to come out of it without one of the top shortstops, to me, would be bad. And this might be a case. I mean, I don't expect the Cubs to sign Correa or Story, but they should still be very in on them. And Story might be a guy whose market is dropping a bit, just because there's going to be less suitors for, so jobs are being filled. There's less competitors for the spot.
Right. And I think that's a great point about Stroman. What you ideally want behind him is like the 2016 defense.
Totally.
I mean, it goes without saying that Addison Russell is an enormous piece of shit, but in terms of defensive metrics, like that is what you want. Is when it was Russell at short and Baez at second, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and if you had Javi at short and Nico Horner at second, that's a comparable infield. And I mean, Carlos Correa led the world in defensive runs saved last year at shortstop. He had 20 defensive runs saved. The only player with a higher score there was Jacob Stallings, new Marlins catcher, with 21. And catching, obviously, we know the metrics on catching are just bizarre. It's hard to figure them out, but
Marlins are going to win the World Series and sell off.
Dude, the Marlins will get the last spot in the new super expanded playoffs when the owners come back with it and 18 teams make the playoffs. The Marlins will be friggin' 72 and whatever, and they will just sweep to the World Series. Absolutely, that's happening. But yeah, I think when you say they need another really significant everyday bat in that lineup and a major league shortstop.
All right, so you probably didn't hear a break because of the editing magic that goes on this very, very high-tech podcast, but I jumped off for about 15 minutes because my flight to Chicago today was canceled. Don't worry, I'm still coming to Chicago, and this gives me a perfect opportunity to say, you know what, we've been spending the last, 3 years bitching on Twitter about how the Ricketts never spend any money, and you know what? I'm going to bitch a little bit if some of you guys don't spend any money to see me at Zanies this weekend to record my album. So you know what? If the Ricketts can spend $71 million for Marcus Stroman, you can spend $20 or whatever the hell a ticket at Zanies Comedy Club is. I'm recording my album as you're listening to this on Friday and Saturday, December 3rd and 4th, 7 and 9 o'clock, both nights. I know for a fact that Tyler, the pastry man, shout out to Tyler, he's coming
friend of the show.
Friend of the show, friend of the pod. So please, I have handled my travel. Please wish me luck. And,
yes, all the flights were too booked up with free agents going to Chicago, so that one had to be canceled.
I hit up Stro. I slid into his DMs. I was like, whatever that PJ was that you were on yesterday, can I use that to come to Chicago?
Yes,
that would be great. Now, and also unrelated to anything Cubs, but. First of all, I plan to wear a Cubs hoodie tomorrow night on stage and a Bulls sweatshirt on Saturday. I'm not going to record an album in Chicago and not wear Chicago sports stuff the whole weekend.
Hell yeah, rep it.
Even though no one will be able to hear my Cubs hoodie on the
Maybe
album,
they'll
know. They'll
vibe it. Yeah.
But I'm also going to Soldier Field for the first time in my life. First and only time, perhaps, if they move to Arlington Heights or wherever the hell.
Right.
I'm going with my childhood best friend, which is already cool. And he kept saying, like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, I'll handle tickets. And I was like, that's very nice, but, like, I'm an adult. I'll pay for my ticket. So a couple days ago, he texted me, and he's like, you want to know where we're sitting? And I was like, sure. And he's like, 3 rows behind the end zone. And I was like, what sort of witchcraft do you do? And he's like, oh, I live down the street from Darnell Mooney. So there you go.
So he just has a Darnell Mooney hookup?
Yeah, apparently.
Okay, then he can get the tickets. That's fine. That's man, this is what a great Chicago weekend you have lined up.
If
here.
I get there, it will be great.
If you get there, Adam's leaving in a plane very shortly here, but I will also be equally, if not more, angry than Adam if none of our listeners go watch Adam record the album this Friday and Saturday at Zanies. It will be a good time. Treat yourself to a night out.
Not to mention that biggest friend of the pod, perhaps of all time, Ken Schultz, doing a little guest
Doing a
spot
guest
on one of the
spot.
Saturday shows.
Yes. I had Ken do a guest spot when I was doing Zany's Rosemont a few weeks ago. Ken's a great comic. You'll enjoy him too. It'll be a fun hang. Go do it. And then you'll have your is this your third album?
It's my third album. It's the second one that I talk about.
Okay, second. So we'll say
in a move that can only be described as aggressive hubris, I recorded an album as a senior in college. I had done stand-up a total of like 23 times. The album cover was literally me sitting on a stool like Mark Maron, except I'm wearing thong sandals, which was completely,
Incredible.
It was not meant to be funny, but it's a perfect representation of where I was at and thought I was at in comedy at the time.
Hell yeah. That's genuinely hilarious.
So bad. Yeah.
So that's great. And you'll have this second/third album in the bag. And then we'll have
second album in the second city.
So yeah, and perfect. And then we'll have all this time to just hang out while literally no baseball stuff happens, just labor talk. Baseball players are already changing their avatars online to be like blank faces and stuff, because they've taken the image from the image and likeness, locking them out from it. So yeah, so now we're gonna have a lot of time to just look at the free agents that we want to fill in here. And basically you look at it and the shopping list has to be, you think someone who is a harder thrower who can miss bats to slide into that maybe like 3 spot in the rotation, 2-3 spot. I mean, Carlos Rodon is still out there if you're going to spend bigger money. And if Stroman took a short deal, a guy with the health concerns of Rodon, who very like high payoff if he's healthy, but you also could get 3 starts from him. That seems like sort of a perfect fit for the Cubs, who have so much short-term spending. And if Stroman agreed to a 3-year deal, I think there's a chance you could do a high AAV for Stroman, sliding him in there. So you need that hard throwing.
Rodon, you mean?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah. Yes, for Rodon. So yeah, you need one actual bat missing hard throwing starter to mix in there. And then, as we said, you need a shortstop and a legitimate bat, at least.
If I'm dreaming, and I don't think the Cubs will do this, especially if there is a DH, which I think everybody expects to happen.
Yeah.
Give me Correa or Story. Already dreaming, right?
Right.
Give me a good middle of the rotation pitcher. And give me Nelson Cruz.
A Nelson Cruz bomb. I would be absolutely into that, because I just enjoy the silly old man magic that is in that bat. He fell off pretty hard at the end of last year. Could have just been a slump. Could have also been he's 58 years old, but he's been.
I think you get Nelson Cruz for like a year and 13 million or something. 10,
well, this 13. Is the thing when we talk about intelligent spending, quote unquote, their words, not ours. And the flexibility of short-term deals. There's no excuse to not spend almost all the way up to the luxury, the CBT threshold, the luxury tax, whatever, the functional salary cap. There's no excuse to not spend almost all the way up to it on 1-year deals, on 2-year deals, things like that. So yes, I mean, you should absolutely be in on whatever you want. And at the top of your shopping list, because that's another thing that even after signing Stroman frustrated me about the Cubs' approach this offseason is you're the big market team. You have all the money, all the space. You shouldn't be waiting around to see what the market shakes out. You should be making your choices based on who you analyze to be the best fits for your team and just making that deal happen. Yep. You should be taking some leadership here. And Stroman, I think that's a top choice. Whatever that's an A+ signing. I'm fine with that over any other pitcher. That's fine. But yes, I would like to see them at this point really go get their first choice at several at the places they still have holes.
Yeah, and I was looking at Bleed Cubby Blue yesterday, and I think it was Sarah Sanchez who either commented or tweeted something that I very much agree with, which was like, none of us owe anybody in ownership an apology for being mad that they weren't doing their jobs.
Absolutely not, because it's not just this offseason.
Right. And in the way that people were kind of tweeting at us like, hey, give it time. Why are you acting like the offseason's over? Yes, sure, that's true. And that it's already been proven that the Cubs did more than we thought they might not do.
Yeah.
But we were upset for legitimate reasons. And as you've said, when we've saw the number of times that you and I have used the phrase the Daniel Descalso offseason on this podcast makes
Mhm.
me more sick than when I found out my flight was canceled. I like
Yes.
th- this has been a trend, and the fact that Jan Gomes for 13 million over 2 years was the biggest position player signing since Hayward.
Since Hayward.
How?
It's
How?
absurd. It's absurd. This is so the anger does not just come, the anger and frustration as it does not just come from not being patient this offseason or whatever. It's because they didn't sign Bryce Harper when they should have,
Right.
or Manny Machado. It's because they didn't sign fucking anybody. It's because they didn't pick a lane. They traded off everybody at everyone's lowest value. They haven't extended anyone beyond Hendricks and David Bodie from this team at all. Supposedly they're not in talks with Contreras as we speak right now. They weren't in talks with Contreras about extending. And so the frustration comes from a lot of places, and that frustration is real and extremely justified.
Now, I will say that while the Cubs have not signed free agents as much as they should have, you do have to give some credit to them actually doing shit at the trade deadline, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
Getting Castellanos, getting Kimbrel, like things like that are important. And I think we forget that sometimes. Not to mention the fact that, like, if we're gonna Scooby-Doo this thing, like, the Ricketts would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for us meddling Cubs Twitter. Like, if you remove the butterfly effect of the Quintana trade, and instead of trading some of your best prospects for Quintana, you go out and get Verlander, maybe the Cubs win the World Series that year. There's no there are these little moments. Or even jumping the market and signing Chatwood. Like, there are these things that have happened where it's like, man, if something happened differently, if Hayward's contract isn't the albatross that it ended up being, there are all these little things where it's like, yeah, certain moves just didn't pay off. But nevertheless, we are allowed to be annoyed at billionaires.
Yes, and
that's evergreen.
One of the it is very evergreen, and one of the perks of being a major market team that brings in the revenue that the Cubs do is you should be able to. It affords you the luxury of those mistakes, and you can paper over them by getting another player. Like when people talk about like, oh, the contract for Hayward didn't work. Yeah, correct. It was a shit contract. And that does not preclude them from spending on a good player ever again. And the only time they went up to that level since then was on Yu Darvish, who they only paid for 3 of those 6 years anyway. So and they only signed Kimbrel because Ben Zobrist's wife went nuts, and they saved money on him. So it's like the frustration.
When I was at my angriest the past couple of days, I tweeted that they should just get Juliana Zobrist to sing the national anthem.
Just to turn full heel.
Burn it down.
That's a great tweet. Great idea. Could you imagine the booze? Oh, it would be amazing. You hear the first sting of her Benny and the Jets, and it's like, what? By God, you got Jim Ross on the announce table, just like, oh, they're playing Juliana Zobrist music. So hopefully they're not going that full heel from this point forward. There's and it's too tempting from an emotional perspective, but so many of the best bats left out there are our former Cub friends. When you look at who the bats to fill in are, it's Brian and Schwarber. Rizzo's still out there, Castellanos and Soler. It's like, yeah.
I think they might be too proud to re-sign a former Cub, because if you know that you could have extended some of these people for a lot less, and now you're going to have to go out and give them a ton more money, it makes you look like an asshole.
Yeah, and then it's a little bit on the flip side too, right? Because like Rizzo's not going to get the deal that he was offered in extension either. So, I mean, who knows if he gets it on a per year value, but he's not getting the combination of years and money that way too. So it also the players might have some pride there too. But there are free agents out there, and there is a little light there that the Cubs could do some real actual contending in the worst division in baseball, arguably. So that would be nice from a top 5 money-making team with access to talent in a great free agent class. Because another reason why we had that frustration, next year's free agent class sucks. You can only get good players when they exist, when they're available, and that's right now. So
right. Real quick before we wrap up here, do you want to do any sort of like kind of rundown of all of the signings, like anything that's jumped out at you in terms of other teams?
Well, I mean, obviously the Rangers have made a huge splash, right? The Rangers, they got your Corey Seager for huge money, over 300 million on the totality of that deal. Marcus Semien, I think, was 7 years, 175. So they
Talk
got
about betting on yourself and having it pay off. The anti Ian Desmond, if you will.
Yes, the Semien, and then they got John Gray, who was rumored to be a Cubs target for a very
and that
reasonable...
was one that I think upset both of us because there's no now that they've signed Stroman, sure, I'm fine with passing on Gray, but if you're not going to sign a Stroman, there's no reason to not be in on a guy like Gray, especially 4 years, 56. That's a good deal.
4 years, 56, a guy who has plus breaking balls and good velocity, even though his fastball doesn't play that well. So yeah, you look at Texas making a huge splash. That AL West is going to be crazy I mean, like everyone except the A's is going for it now. Robbie Ray signed with the Mariners over there. The Mets, obviously, after Steve Cohen had his latest meltdown over Steven Matz. I saw someone tweet like, is Steven Matz the Archduke Ferdinand of like the offseason, where Steven Matz sort of like was the first dude to sign. Steve Cohen got pissed about Steven Matz not giving them the last chance to sign him, and then he went and signed everybody. They signed Max Scherzer for 43 million a year. They signed Starling Marte, Mark Canha, Escobar.
They had signed Escobar, they had. So more recently, the big ones yesterday, obviously Stroman. The Dodgers brought back Chris Taylor.
Yes,
the
4 years,
Diamondbacks signed Mark Melancon. That's not as interesting.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, we have Rich Hill going back to the Red Sox. Good for him. We have who else do we have? We got Corey Knables with the Phillies. I didn't even see that one. The Red Sox are bringing back Jackie Bradley Jr. They traded Hunter Renfroe to the Brewers. Watch Renfroe hit 60 home runs for the Brewers.
Renfroe had a good year too. I don't understand. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, why would you get rid of him? He's and he's got an unbelievable arm too.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that Javi went to the Tigers, and essentially it was for like the money that the Cubs had offered him with an extension. So I guess in that one respect, sure, the Cubs tried to do their job in extending Javi.
They did, but I will, as maybe a harsher review, I am big on, I'm not giving the Cubs credit for Jed Hoyer's, like, these deals we offered will look good in hindsight compared to the market. I don't give a shit. Get the deal done. Like, part of this is a negotiating skill as well, and doing what it takes to close the deal. And to sign someone in free agency, you have to overpay a little bit. That's how the market works, and we can stand to do that. So
man, imagine Kyle Seager has not signed anywhere yet, and it's got to be rough that he'll probably sign like a $50 million contract, and his family will be like,
yeah, hey, good for you. That's cool. Kyle's doing good too. The head. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And Kyle Seager, a left-handed power bat who can play the corners. I mean, I could absolutely see that being a Cubs target too. I've
heard his name connected. I don't know if there's any real speculation that that'll happen other than fans saying like, hey, that would be a good thing, but but it's a name that makes sense. And the Cardinals, really the main thing they did, as we said, adding Steven Matz to the rotation. The Pirates are like bizarrely, it's hard to be like the worst and sell off, but that's basically what they're doing. They sent Stallings to Miami, so the Pirates are trying to get even worse. They did sign Jose Quintana. So if there is any sort of overall salary floor that they determine with this new CBA, and it's like every team has to spend 100 million, the Pirates are going to be very upset. And the Rays more than anyone, but
the Rays, that's true, will probably be the most pissed. But the Pirates will be like, shit, we have to sign Trevor Story. Like they'll have to sign like Story and Chris Bryant to just reach the floor. But yeah, it was an exciting flurry. It's been an exciting flurry of moves, and there's big contending teams that haven't done anything yet that you expect to see the Yankees do something, the White Sox maybe do something, but yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think that's what we got. Once again, please come see me at Zany's this weekend. If you have any money left over from that, check out our friends Manscaped. Take care of your nuts, and use promo code AWAYGAMES to save 20% and get free shipping. I mean, what's great about Manscaped is that it's a great Christmas gift / suggestion. If you're a lady out there and or a man, what am I saying? If you are with a man who's a little unkempt and you want to get a nice gift, but also be like, hey, here's a little nudge for you. Manscaped, really, really solid Christmas or Hanukkah gift.
20% off away games. Use that promo code, save your money. Go see Adam December 3rd and 4th, recording an album at Zany Chicago. If you're local, party in Old Town. And and welcome to the Cubs, Marcus Stroman and Clint Frazier.
Yeah, I am going to put up a clip today of our interview with Ethan Roberts where he talks specifically about being a fan of Marcus Stroman. He was very excited on Twitter yesterday, as was Adbert Alzolay, and I assume every other Cub, unless they're idiots.
Yeah.
Bob Brenly not as excited, but
yeah, that's fine. I'm cool with anything that makes that guy sad. So yeah, that's wonderful. But yeah, thanks for listening. Go see Adam, and we will catch you soon. Next time there's news on Away Games.